Okay. Welcome again to International Literacy Day webinar in commemoration of World Literacy Day, which is tomorrow. I like the energy already. The comment section is filled with messages, and I'm super excited. Alrighty, so this webinar is hosted by it's organized by 5 organizations in the field of literature, SDGs, capacity development, and education. And these organizations are TESDA. TESDA is the Educators for Sustainable Development Africa. We have EcoPages, Everything Literature, ELTAN, which is English and Literature Teachers Association of Nigeria, and A+Educators. World Literacy Day is very, very important. And we have organized this webinar to share insights on the theme of this year, which is promoting multilingual education, literacy for mutual understanding and peace, which is a very interesting topic. And we have very esteemed speakers lined up for this meeting. We have Madam Indidi Chiazo Enemo. We have Mr. Idowu Olajide Taofik. We have Mr. Erick Ceciliano Matamoros. Apologies if I do not pronounce your name properly. We also have Ms. Chime and Mrs. Rasheedat Sadiq. So before we proceed, I want us to go to the comments and just type what your expectations are for this webinar. Just tell us one thing you expect, one thing you look forward to for this webinar. Let's just see your expectations in the comment section. So let's go. So Aisha Abubakar Atiku says she looks forward to learning new things and networking, teaching with EL, emotional intelligence. Said, I expect ideas on ways to promote literacy and make multilingualism work. That's truly something. And so let's keep our expectations coming in. Nkeru Wakaut. Apologies again. She said, or he said, I want to acquire more knowledge to make my teaching more effective. That is really nice. Let's keep our expectations coming in. What are your expectations for this webinar today? Let's see your expectations in the comments. All right, Omoyeni Damilola said, I want to explore and learn new things. We are definitely going to do all that during this webinar. We are going to learn, we are going to be enlightened, it's going to be insightful, and I look forward to learning new things too. I look forward to learning from our esteemed speakers. And the beautiful thing about this webinar is that the speakers are speaking on different topics, but all related to the theme of World Literacy Day. Again, our theme is promoting multilingual education, literacy for mutual understanding. So please keep your expectations coming in. We would love to know what you expect from this meeting, this webinar. Hello, Comfort Jay. We see you. So before we proceed, I'd like to indicate importance of World Literacy Day. It's tomorrow. So World Literacy Day is important for so many reasons. It raises awareness of literacy issues. It promotes education as a human right. World Literacy Day, it fosters economic growth and development. It encourages social inclusion. It promotes global peace and understanding, and it also supports lifelong learning. I am super okay. Before I proceed, Olasubomi Alimi, let me be serious. Okay, Olasubomi Alimi indicated that he or she looks forward to learning the possibilities of incorporating indigenous language in teaching, learning, and analysis of literary writings. There are high expectations for this webinar, and I am too certain that we will deliver. Olukotun Comfort. So I'll just call your first name. So Comfort said he or she looks forward to acquiring new ideas and concepts on how to improve the literacy rates in schools. That is really profound. So we have 5 speakers coming up for 10 minutes each, and we'll have a Q&A section after each speaker comes up for 5 minutes. We are going to strictly keep up to time because we have so much, we have 5 speakers, and we are certain that there are some persons here that would also want to chip in a thing or two during this webinar. So, as indicated again, you are welcome. You are welcome to this webinar in commemoration of World Literacy Day, which is tomorrow. So we'll just go straight ahead to introduce our first speaker. So our first speaker is Miss Rasheedat Sadiq. I'll just read a little bit of her bio. Miss Rasheedat Sadiq is an English language teacher, literacy advocate, reading coach, storyteller, and materials writer who runs a mobile library. She also trains teachers on learner-centered pedagogy with focus on utilizing emotional intelligence to derive learning outcomes. She's a champion of public speaking and has had the opportunity to share a knowledge at various national and international conferences. Alrighty, everyone, let's welcome Ms. Rasheedat Sadiq. So, Ms. Rasheedat, over to you.
Thank you very much, Erick. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? All right, so I'd like to have my slides up if that's possible. Today, I'll be talking about multilingualism and its relevance in a global village, story of an international citizen. So yeah, I see some of my friends here. I'm happy to have them here. Thank you for those that are acknowledging that they can hear me well. I really, really appreciate it. So Parrot, I am waiting for my slides. Great, they're up. Beautiful. So the end tag of my presentation is a story of an international citizen, and that was too long to add here, but I will be telling some stories, and I do love to tell stories, so maybe I might have to be checked for time. Great, so let's go straight into it. I will have some of the technical aspects before I tell my stories. Please, can I have the next slide? Great. So what exactly is multilingual education? Now, various people have had various definitions, and Zenos in his article talks about multilingual education being the use of 2 or more languages in education, provided that schools aim at multilingualism and multiliteracy. Now, what this definition is telling us is that the schools need to try to make sure they're getting their learners to be literate in more than 1 language, which is different from, introducing the language to learners rather than getting them really literate or fluent in that language. So that is something we see, for example, with French in Nigeria. A number of schools do teach French, but at the end of the day, most of us do not know more than Je m'appelle and bonjour. So that is not really enough to be classified as multilingual education. And he also focuses on the fact that multilingual education is done in schools. In Nigeria, we have our national policy on education actually entrenching multilingual education for us. And I tried to outline some of the points. So the policy says that in the pre-primary nursery school, instruction should be in the mother tongue. The primary levels, up until primary 3 or year 3 or grade 3 or basic 3, because we have so many names now, the child is to be taught also in the language of the immediate environment. So if you live in Enugu, all children in Enugu schools should be taught in Igbo up until primary 3. If you live in Oyo State, Yoruba should be the medium of instruction and education. And if you live in Sokoto, Hausa, for example. And this takes into consideration other minor languages because it says language of the immediate environment. So if you're in Benue, it might have to be Tiv or Idoma, as the case may be. And then the policy says from primary 4, we switch to having English as the medium of instruction. But it also talks about being a progressive switch, so that it's not that we abandon totally, but here we're more and more doing that. And then at the secondary level, English should be the sole level language of instruction. But I have my own definition here, which I believe I will be following as far as my talk is concerned, that multilingual education involves the language, learning and teaching of more than one language, bearing in mind that the mother's lap can be said to be the first one. So multilingual education can start from home, can start on the laps of the mother. Next slide, please. Have the next slide. Thank you. So I want to start by telling a bit of a story of my life when I was growing up. My parents were one of those educated parents that felt that it was better to have the children be spoken to in English and learn in English. But it was funny how we grew up. Whenever they were eating, I wanted to give me something, they would say, bah. And that was especially when it related to meat. So as I grew up around the age of 1.5, 2 years old, this is an anecdote they told me. Anytime I saw anybody eating, I would say, give me ba. Because in my mind, ba meant meat. So then they corrected me and said, no, it's not ba, it's meat. So I started saying, give me, whenever I wanted meat. That's just to show you that sometimes trying to limit the child does not help. At the point where my parents decided to take Yoruba teaching seriously for us was one day when I heard my mom talking to a friend, and she said in Yoruba, "Oyin ta oyin loja." I was so confused, and I spent hours ruminating over the meaning of this, because they didn't speak Yoruba directly to us, but they spoke Yoruba to a friend, they spoke Yoruba to each other. So at the end of the day, I had to go to my mom and I said, "Mom, why did Madam Oyi sell Oyi in the market?" So basically, I had a friend who was called Oyi. We used to call her Oyi. And my mom had a friend called Oyi Damola, so we used to call her Madam Oyi. And then she told me, no. Madam Oyi did not sell Oyi. What happened was that Oyi is bee. So a bee stung Oyi in the market. And I was just like, wow. At that point, they saw that, okay, they needed to kind of up the way they were interacting with us in Yoruba. And it wasn't a country where I would have called the police on Madam Oyi for child trafficking. Who knows what would have happened, because I didn't really understand the language and I wasn't multilingual enough. All right, thank you. Let me have the next slide, please. So we want to look at the importance of multilingual education. Why is multilingualism important? So there are many reasons, and the first, I just found a classification that was able to share it into 5. First being cognitive, about the brain. Second being educational. The third being language development. The fourth being socio-cultural, and the fifth being economic. I may not want to go through all of these one by one, because I could spend at least 30 minutes, trying to elucidate on all of them. But I would try to tell some stories around some of these importance. So for example, it helps learners that are multilingual be more receptive to linguistic patterns and be better able to understand other languages. So when I was learning French, my knowledge of English was very, very helpful to me, because we have a number of words that are related in French and English. When I was trying, as I am trying to learn Hausa, my knowledge of Arabic was also very useful to me, because we have similar patterns in Hausa and Arabic, and a lot of borrowed words from Hausa to Arabic. So all in all, it is more beneficial for an individual to be multilingual, and it is better achieved from a younger age. Next slide, please. All right, my second story. So these are pictures of me at different conferences. And the first one was a conference in Angola, the one where we're all having fun. And in that picture, I have colleagues, English language teachers from Cameroon and from Senegal. And one of the ways that I was quickly able to bond with them when I got there, I was the only Nigerian initially, and later on another Nigerian who isn't based in Nigeria joined us, was the fact that I could understand French. So they could speak English, yes, but you know how it is when you're with your people, you're comfortable. You go to your most comfortable language, and they would say a lot of things in French, and I was never left out because I understood what they were saying, and we're really able to bond. And then interestingly, the Cameroonians also have this beautiful pidgin English that reminds me of Wari English that made me so much more closer to them. So yeah, language does that for you. It gives your family outside of family when you're multilingual. And that initially, I also used to think that pidgin was not a language on its own. When we were preparing for this webinar, people were talking about languages they speak, and so many people were saying pidgin. I remember this incident. I was like, yeah, pidgin is a language, and it helps you to bond. The second picture were some ladies I met in the US. When I met them, it was a TESDA convention, also for English teachers, and they were at the registration desks. Apparently, they were studying in the US. And I met them, and they attended to me at the registration, and they were speaking with an American accent, but one of them just had a little bit of a tone that I thought was Nigerian, but I wasn't sure, and I was kind of too shy to ask. And when it was lunchtime, I happened to sit by them, and I heard them speaking pidgin English. I was so excited. I had to go up to them. I said, "Excuse me, are you from Nigeria by any chance?" And they said they were. And they just adopted me, told me their life stories, how they were students in the university, and offered me their lunch. I couldn't eat because I was fasting at the time, but we spent like so many minutes together having fun, taking pictures, and they were the ones that made me laugh, wholeheartedly for the first time during that conference, because I was still jet lagged and a bit apprehensive before I met them. And the third picture, her name is Adiza. We also met in the US at the TESOL convention. She's from Niger. But we bonded. Number one, she looks like my twin. She's a Muslim, she has a hijab, but she also speaks Hausa. Interestingly, my Hausa is not good enough to actually communicate, but we could bond over just simple things. We ended up looking for a Nigerian restaurant together, and we're talking about, tuwo shinkafa or semo, despite, it was an African restaurant, I beg your pardon. Despite the fact that we're not actually from the same country, we could bond over language. That's kind of the importance of multilingualism for us. It helps you to gain friends and family wherever you go. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about, I think, the challenges of multilingual education, if I'm correct. Can I have the next slide, please? All right, thank you. Yeah, so there are a few challenges, and first of all is the students' perceptions. In a number of places, the students look up to those that speak English. Everybody wants to speak Queen's English. So if you introduce that mother tongue, for example, in primary 1, primary 2, a lot of the students from their houses, from their private nursery schools, have been introduced to English, and they feel, oh, this is local. Why are you using this local language to teach me? I prefer English. And that is part of the challenge of multilingual education. Another one is parental challenges. Parents also want their children to speak English. English is now kind of the global language. And then we have some of the parents also thinking of the political aspect. Okay, why do you want to force my child to learn in Hausa, but we are not Hausa, we are Dagi, or we are Rupe, just because this is the northern region? We also have some of those incidents that pose a challenge to multilingual education, specifically in Nigeria. And we have some of those also in other parts of the world. We also have the issue of insufficient resources. So in my mobile library, I take books to read to the students or to the children in the community, and all I had were foreign books. So at a point, I started wondering, where can I buy books in Hausa that are good enough for children, that they can understand the story, that they can relate to. And I couldn't get to buy, but I was gifted by a friend who happened to do a project for the USAID, where they produced a product in Karanta in Hausa language. And that was what we used to help the learners with phonics in Hausa, because we have been trying to teach the phonics, but the stories we were telling, everything was in English. The words we were reading were in English, and it wasn't really making sense until we were able to get that. Then we have the teacher knowledge. There's also a way, a methodology of multilingual education that most of us are not able to grasp yet, because we're talking about languages, about communication. Like I said with the French example, it's not just about exchanging, telling verbs or giving grammatical structures. There's a lot more to it, and those are some of the challenges and things that we need to think about as we promote multilingualism. But truly, it is a tool for peace. On the other slide where we talked about the importance, there was a whole column on the social cultural. And if you do have more than one language, you're able, you can just help me go to the slide before on the importance. I'll just talk a little bit and then move back forward. If we do have social cultural, if we do have multilingualism, we're able to understand the other cultures, because a big part of language is culture. You're able to show more empathy, even if you don't agree with everything in that culture, but you know why it's like that, you accept the culture, and that helps us to promote the peace we're talking about. It helps us to appreciate the other cultures that we're seeing. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is my last story for today. Hopefully, I might pepper with a few more. Just on Wednesday, I was on my way to Lafayette, on Tuesday actually, for an ELTAN conference holding in Lafayette. And because, like I said, my Hausa is barely passable, I was almost abandoned at the car park. I was in the car and I was asked to pay for the car fare, the transport fare, and I wasn't aware. And because I dressed like this, the man asking for the money actually thought I was ignoring him. And he said out loud, which I also wasn't aware, that if I don't pay, he's going to get money from somebody else and drop me from the vehicle. And I didn't know all of that. It was a nice lady next to me that said, "Won't you pay? Pay." Then she started calling the guy. And I said, "Why are you calling him? That when he's ready to collect his money, he's going to come to me." And she said, "He actually said he's going to drop you from this vehicle because you didn't pay." And I was shocked. I was a bit upset. I said, "Will he carry me?" That was my reaction. But I was also like, wow. So if he was going to plan to kidnap me or plan to sell me, is that how I wouldn't really know what was going on? So now I've made up my mind, I really need to learn Hausa, because I am living in the northern part of Nigeria. I'm based in Abuja. But in Abuja, I have been able to get away with not speaking Hausa, but in Lafayette, I couldn't do that. So many things I had to do with sign language. I needed a place to pray, and I was asking them, and they couldn't tell me in English, but they did use good sign language to tell me how to find a place to pray. Thank you. So the next slide, please. All right, so I'm coming towards the end. What should we do as parents? I think the first thing we need to do is to have a shift in our mindset. We need to know that having an extra language, having our mother tongue is an advantage. Start with your children with your mother tongue, even if you are not so good. Because for me, now I speak Yoruba to my children, even though I learned my Yoruba a bit later on. Also try to speak multiple languages. And in some families, you have the mother speaking a different language, the father speaking a different language, and then there's English. And that's okay. You can actually decide that, oh, mom is going to speak Igbo to the child, dad is going to speak Hausa to the child, and mom and dad are going to speak English with each other. And you find out that the children actually pick up all of these languages. And we can play games in various languages. I remember recently there's a show we watch on YouTube. It's called Masoimbo, and it's a Yoruba quiz show. So there, it's a bit like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but it's in Yoruba. And you can do things like that in your house and just give like sweets or simple gifts for those that are able to get the words in the language you're trying to promote. Read multilingual books. These are difficult to find, but I was able to find a website, African Storybooks, that had a lot of stories translated into different languages. Very good for children. So it has Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba there. I'm sure of those three. And I think a few more Nigerian languages. Swahili, a lot of languages are there. Incorporate multilingual movies, songs, and podcasts so that they're hearing. I love going to Lagos because in Lagos, I hear the radio in Yoruba and I'm just always energized. And interestingly, I'm actually originally from Ogun State. My father is Ijebu. So imagine a house where we didn't really speak Yoruba, talk less of Ijebu. But now as I'm older, anytime I go to my dad, I take lessons in Ijebu and he teaches me things like, oh, what is Ababuteru? And Ababuteru is things that you bring home for those that you've left at home. So let's also try to travel home, maybe to our villages regularly. If we are at home, maybe in Lagos, let's try to attend cultural functions where Yoruba will be spoken. Let's celebrate multilingualism. Let's not make it feel like it's local to understand your language. You can speak Yoruba fluently like a Yoruba person and speak English almost like a British person. It's doable, it's done. I recently watched a gentleman on social media and he could switch. And he said he'd never been out of the country. He could switch from his like normal area boy in Lagos tone of Yoruba and switch to a perfect British accent. And then we can try to incorporate technology, Duolingo. There's another app I use, or I know it's called Anilingo, and that also has Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa. Thank you. Someone says I sound like a half-caste woman. I'm not, but that is what can happen. I speak Yoruba fluently, and now I can sound almost like a half-caste woman. Thank you very much. Can I have the next slide, please? So what can schools do? It's easier said than done. I think about this all the time because in the school, we have so many people. We have some teachers that can't speak in the indigenous language. We have children coming from all over the world. And yes, we want everybody to be included. But I think that schools can start by training teachers in multilingual instruction. We can also try to celebrate and promote all cultures. We can have cultural days. We can decide to have this week is Hausa week, the next week is Igbo week, or depending on if we want to focus on the language in our immediate vicinity, we just focus on that language and promote the speaking of that language. Let's not ever look down because we had that time where vernacular was a taboo. You're seen as local if you can't speak in English. You're charged money or punished if you speak in your local languages. I believe there should be discipline in that line, but let's promote it. Let's involve community members. Let's bring people from the community to talk to the children and let them see that there are professors, doctors that speak English, but also speak the local languages. Let's establish language clubs, have exchange programs so we can do this through online videos if we want. Let's incorporate technology also into the schools. Now, I work in a school and I noticed let's go to the next one, talking about misconceptions. A lot of people feel that multilingualism is confusing, but it's not. Regularly, we have students coming into our school, which is in Abuja, from, okay, sorry, can you help me look for the slide on misconceptions? Did I miss it somewhere? I thought I had it. So basically, it's on the fact that, yeah, okay, here it is. The fact that they come in, they can't speak any language except the one from home. So for example, we had someone come in who could speak only Fulfulde, and within a year, that child was speaking not only English quite fluently, but also Hausa. So children are that flexible. They can adapt when they need the language. Some people feel that if they learn more than one language, they speak slower. In some cases, they do speak slower, but when they start with the speaking, they're fluent in everything. Some people think there's language confusion, but there isn't. For those that are taught properly, if you have proper English teaching and proper Yoruba teaching, there'll be no confusion. It's when even the English teachers are speaking in the form of Yoruba English that there will be confusion. So you have to make sure that the people teaching you English know English, and the people teaching you whatever other language know the language. So some people also feel that if you have too many languages, you won't be proficient in any, but that's not how languages work. I know people that speak 4 or 5 languages fluently, and I wish I could be them. I have a friend, he's Nupe, he's from somewhere in Kwara State, I can't remember his city right now or town, but he speaks Yoruba fluently, he speaks Nupe fluently, and he speaks Hausa fluently, English fluently, he's learning Arabic, and none of it is causing confusion in his brain. And there are no reasons for academic challenges. On the importance, we already looked at the fact that it actually helps cognitive and educationally. Has many, for me, Please let's go to the references. I'm about to finish. I know that I've lost a few opportunities. Excellent. Somebody says Hausa British accent. That's also fine as long as they can be understood, you know. For me, I've lost a few opportunities because I could not speak Hausa. I live in the north and I work in the education space, and I see opportunities with UNICEF, opportunities for projects, but you need to be able to speak Hausa. I can't do that, so I'm just stuck in my Abuja. So like I said, one of my goals is to add Hausa to one of the languages that I will be fluent in. Thank you for listening. We can go to the thank you slide. I don't know if I still have time for questions. I know I spoke a lot. Thanks. So Perry, are you still there? All right.
Yes, I am. Yeah. So Mrs. Rasheedat spoke on multilingual education and relevance in a global village, the story of an international citizen. And she indeed gave us very profound stories. Give me back. That stood out to me because it underscores the impact and importance of language education. Let's see clapping emojis for Mrs. Rasheedat Sadiq. Well done, ma'am. Well done. All right.
Thank you.
We are way past our time, but this section has been truly enlightening. So we'll take just one question. We have just one question for Mrs. Rasheedat. So if you have a question, please indicate by raising up your hand, and we'll take the question quickly. All righty. Ayobami Sam, please unmute your mic and ask your question. Thank you.
All right, good morning, Perry. Good morning, Ms. Rasheedat. Thank you for that wonderful session on multilingual education. So my question is that I teach in a setting where the students are right from childhood exposed to Yoruba language, and then it's a very difficult thing for them to express themselves. I mean explicitly in English language. So now, being an English teacher, if I want to teach, I use English language. I use Yoruba language to explain English. Imagine using Yoruba language to explain the definition of Concord. So what can we do in this kind of setting, in this kind of situation, to carry everybody along? Because I'm not really used to speaking Yoruba, but I find myself speaking it because I want them to learn what I'm teaching. I want them to get what I'm teaching actually. So now I'm used to speaking more of English language, even sometimes at home. What can I do?
Okay, so personally, I think what you're doing is the best because Concord is not easy to understand. And if you are giving instruction in a language that is not understood or understandable to the person you are talking to, then it's zero work done. However, what I would advocate for is finding other opportunities for them to speak in English. So let's have lesson plans that are more communicative in nature, where they need to talk to themselves in English, or give a product in English, act a play in English, give a presentation, debate in English. But for those explanations, I'm now one of those that propose that translanguaging that you're talking about. Sometimes what I do, especially if I don't understand the language and I have children that, I even ask someone that understands in the class to explain to the others in the local language. And I think that's the best way to go for now. But we need to look for more practical activities that can help them to utilize English more within the classroom during our English lesson, language classes. That's my opinion. Thank you. All right, Erick.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Rasheedat. It was truly insightful and interesting, as Serafina Balogun indicated. Thank you. So we will go straight to the next speaker. I will present my screen now. Okay, so our next speaker is Mr. Erick Siciliano Matamoros. Mr. Erick is an English teacher from Costa Rica. He has been working for 14 years at MEP He got his SIT TESDA certificate. He's a virtual workshop presenter in IELTAN, Egypt, in Nigeria, in A+Educators, and India at Oxford University. He attended the 8th Africa ELTA face-to-face conference held in El Cairo, Egypt last May. He was also selected as country coordinator, Global Education Network, Costa Rica. Mr. Erick's section is pre-recorded because of time difference. So we will not have a Q&A section, but I believe that it will be as insightful and interesting as the first section we just had. Alrighty, so round of applause, share your clapping emojis. Let's start with Mr. Erick Siciliano Matamoros.
Hello, good morning here in Costa Rica, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Erick Siciliano Matamoros. I am honored to be your presenter for this session. Unfortunately, due to unpredicted circumstances, I am unable to attend the conference. However, I am grateful for the opportunity to share with you through this presentation. I hope you find the content engaging and valuable. Although I am not here in real time, I am looking forward to your feedback and questions, which I will address as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding, and let's get into business. On Literacy Day, we celebrate the transformative power of literacy in fostering education and empowerment across the globe. The importance of the multilingual education cannot be overstated. This is not just a tool for communication, it's a bridge that connects cultures, promotes inclusivity, and enriches cognitive abilities. By embracing multilingual education, we provide students and learners with the skills needed to prosper in diverse environments, fostering global communities and understanding. Multilingual education, what is it? It's a teaching approach where students learn in more than one language. It helps students understand and communicate in different languages, allowing them to connect with people from other cultures and broaden their knowledge. Why is it important? Multilingual education is important because it prepares students with the ability to communicate in different languages, which opens up more opportunities in this world. It helps students understand and appreciate different cultures, enhances cognitive skills like problem solving and creativity, and prepares them for a diverse society. In addition, it can improve academic performance and provide a competitive advantage in the job market. Connecting cultural gaps. Multilingual literacy helps people from different cultures to talk and understand each other better. This reduces confusion, builds respect, and creates stronger connections. By learning and using multiple languages, individuals can share ideas more clearly, appreciate different perspectives, be respectful, and work together more effectively in a diverse world. Fostering mutual understanding. Being literate in multiple languages allows people to engage in cross-cultural dialogues where they can share ideas, learn from each other's experiences, and and understand different perspectives. This kind of exchange is crucial for building confidence, promoting global cooperation, and it helps break down barriers, encourages collaboration across nations and cultures. Okay, next, what about benefits? What benefits we can get from multilingual literacy? Okay, number one, cognitive abilities. Number two, career opportunities. Number three, social connections. And number four, cultural awareness. So let's talk about number one, cognitive abilities. Learning multiple languages enhances cognitive abilities by improving memory, problem-solving skills, and the ability to think. It keeps the brain active and adaptable. Number two, career opportunities. Being fluent in more than one language opens up a wide range of career opportunities. Multilingual individuals are often more competitive in the job market and can work in global environments. Number three, social connections. Multilingual literacy supports social connections by allowing individuals to communicate with people from different backgrounds, fostering friendships and collaborations across cultures. And finally, number four, cultural awareness. It promotes empathy and cultural awareness as well, helping individuals better understand and appreciate the customs and traditions of others. This centrals to more inclusive and respectful interactions. Multilingual education and social cohesion. By promoting understanding and respect from different languages and cultures, multilingual education plays a key role in building social cohesion. It helps people appreciate cultural diversity, reduces prejudice, and fosters a sense of belonging. As individuals learn to communicate across languages, they are better, they are good, they learn how to live together in a good way, creating stronger and more united communities. Now, this part is very important, challenges and solutions. Okay, so what kind of challenges we can face and also how to overcome them at the same time. Okay, challenges. What do we have? Let's see. Resource limitations, cultural resistance, and policy gaps. What about solutions? Investment in teacher training, community engagement. For me, it's very important, and supportive policies. So let's talk about challenges. Number one, resource limitations. Many educational systems lack the resources needed to implement multilingual programs effectively. This includes a shortage of trained teachers, insufficient teaching materials in multiple languages, and limited funding for language support services. So what about number two, cultural resistance? In some communities, they may be resistant to multilingual education due to cultural prejudice or lack of understanding of its benefits. Number three, policies may not adequately support multilingual education. There might be a lack of frameworks, inadequate teacher training programs, or insufficient integration of multilingual education. Now, let's go to the other side, solutions. investment in teacher training. Okay, so how important it is. Investing in the professional development of educators to teach in multiple languages is essential. This includes providing training in language, cultural competences, and the use of multilingual resources. Well-trained teachers can better support students in this field. Community engagement. Engaging with communities to build support for multilingual education is crucial. As I said before, it's very important. If you're going to work in a project, if you're going to work in a mini project, so you can have that relation with the community, in this case, parents. And working with local leaders and families to address concerns and promote the value, which is very important, and also promoting multiple languages. Number 3, supportive policies. Developing and implementing policies that promote multilingual education can drive systematic change. This includes creating funding opportunities, establishing clear guidelines for multilingual curriculum development, and integrating language education into national and regional educational strategies. And that's very important to take into account what solutions we can give to the problem to resolve or to solve the problem. So in conclusion, multilingual education is a powerful tool that bridges cultural gaps and fosters mutual understanding. By embracing and supporting multilingual literacy programs, we not only enhance individual opportunities, but also contribute to a more peaceful and connected world. Let's commit to promoting and supporting these programs to ensure that everyone can benefit from the rich, diverse perspectives that multilingual education offers. Together, we can make the difference to build a good global community. And thank you for your attention. Actually, it was a pleasure for me to be here with all of you. Thank you very much.
I'll share my screen. Apologies once again for the glitch in sound. So our next speaker is.
Good morning, everyone. So,
Good morning.
yeah, thank you. I'm Precious, and I'll be co-hosting with Pere for today's webinar. Right about now, we'll be having our icebreaker session. I have about 3 questions here. I'll take the ones I can. So, on to my first question. Please, if you have an answer to the question, just use the raise a hand feature. I'll pick someone to answer. Do we get the instruction? If you get the instruction, please raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you. So my first question, which African country has the highest number of languages spoken? Which African country has the highest number of languages spoken? Okay. Oluwakemi Adeoni, do you want to answer? If you want to answer, please go ahead, Oluwakemi. I'm waiting.
Hello, can you hear me? Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you. Good morning.
Nigeria. If you can hear me, Nigeria.
Yes, Nigeria. Thank you very much. You got it right. So to my next question, you can keep your hands down if you've answered already, unless you know the second question I'm about to ask. Okay. So my next question, what is the world's most translated book? What is the world's most translated book? If you know the answer, please raise a hand. I'll pick someone to answer. Eukarya Agalu. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. You can answer, please. Unmute yourself and answer. Eukarya Agalu, I thought you wanted to answer. You can answer now, please. Or did we get the question? What is the world's most translated book? Okay, if Eukarya is not hearing us, the other person raising her hand, what's the name?
It's the Bible. The Bible.
Okay, thank you. The Bible, very correct. So lastly, this is like, I don't know what to call this, but then you can try if you would have an answer to this. I want someone to try saying hello in 5 different languages. We just treated the importance of multilingualism. So I want someone to attempt saying hello in 5 different languages. Who wants to make a try? Who is trying? Anybody? Thank
Hello, I
you.
want to try.
Comfort, please go ahead.
Hello, that's English.
Hello. English. Okay.
Bawo, that's Yoruba.
Okay, 2.
Abadie, that's Calabar.
Wow. 3.
Oh, why is this thing running away from my brain now? Oh, sorry about that. It disappeared.
That was a very nice trial, actually. That was a very nice trial. Okay. Who else wants to try? Adelola Edema. You can try.
All right. So I want to try. I'm not sure if it's hello in all those languages. I'm just going to say the greetings I know. So
Okay.
Awusa Sonu.
Yes.
Then Spanish, Buenos dias. French, bonjour. Pidgin, how na? Yoruba, báwo.
Wow, complete 5. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so that's it for our icebreaker session today. I hope by now our third speaker is ready.
Miss Chime. Miss Chime is a tech educator, trainer, and coach. She's also a SCN educator and language tutor, English, French, and German. She strongly believes that no child should be left out and every child is unique. This is why she has partnered with various organizations to encourage active and effective inclusion, especially through the use of technology in the classroom. She helps educators across Africa and the globe to master the use and integration of tech in subject areas as well as teaching and learning. So everyone, please share your clapping emoji as usual to welcome our next speaker. Hi, Miss. Over to you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm sorry, I was trying to also to make sure that you can hear what I'm saying. Okay, so today I'll be talking about leveraging technology with to support multilingual education. I don't know if my slide is ready. Can we put up the slide, please? Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so sorry, thank you. I have to actually rejoin on my phone. I think this is better. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm so sorry for the technical delay. Today, we're talking about leveraging technology to support multilingual education. And like I've said initially, that we've heard a lot from our former speakers, especially from Rasheedat. And I like her definition of multilingual education. I like the fact that she pointed out using storytelling, something quite different on what you need to know about the different objectives and what multilingual education actually encompasses. Sorry, the next slide, please. The next slide, please. Yeah, the next slide, please. So what is multilingual education, if we must ask? Multilingual education is the use of one or more than one languages as a medium of instruction or learning in formal and non-formal settings. So it does not just have to be in the classroom, it does not just have to be maybe in a formal setting, but both at home and everywhere, multilingual education can actually take place. And we know that my topic, using multilingual education to support, using technology to support multilingual education, we know that there are two keywords there, which are multilingual education, then technology. So what exactly is technology? Now, when you come to education space, you know, technology is a combined use of both computer hardware, software, and also educational theory and practice to be able to facilitate learning, which is very, very important. So we're saying that it's not just knowing what to do, but it's also being able to use those things effectively. That is when you can say that technology has become effective, when you can be able to use it to facilitate learning in the classroom. The next slide, please. We're going to talk about the objectives of MSE. Because when you understand the objective of multilingual education, which we've also said that it's the use of one or more than one language as a medium of instruction or learning in the classroom. Rasheedat made example of she was trying to learn French, and she found out that her knowledge of English was able to help her learn the French effectively. When she was trying to learn Hausa too, she found that her knowledge of Arabic actually helped her to learn Hausa effectively too. So what are the objectives? Because if we don't understand the objective, we will not know why or how we can use technology to make multilingual education effective. So the very first thing that it does is that it fosters communication across different cultures. You can see that, for instance, I speak English. I also have done a lot of courses in English too, but I also learned French and German. And I found that when I was trying to learn French, that those that understood Yoruba, they were able to learn French faster because some of the cultures, some of the lifestyles, especially the greeting aspect, you know that when you come to when you're a Yoruba person, you're already echo this, echo that, echo that. So the same thing that we also have in the French language. There's always bon this, bon courage, bon assis, bon appetit. So there's just bon in everything that you're doing. And you can see that it fosters communication among cultures. It also helps to preserve linguistic diversity, which is one thing that the world is trying to push at this point, so that we don't forget the linguistic foundations that we have already existing, especially when you're trying to teach English language to other speakers of other languages. Then it empowers students to engage in a globalized world, in the world as it is now. We know that English is very, we know that is spoken in like so many countries and is used as a major form of communication. So this it also helps to empower your students to be able to be confident, because they'll be confident to speak that language, confident to speak English and to use it for every aspect that they want to use in their different parts, their different lives. And it promotes cognitive development. When you encourage multilingualism, you're broadening the students' horizon, because they are able to think in different languages. They are able to stretch their brain, and that is where neuroplasticity comes in. The fact that you can learn as many things as possible. You can acquire different languages as possible. You're not limited to just one language alone. The next slide, please. Now, let's go to where the main deal of this particular presentation technology, which is something I'm very passionate about. So what happens when technology meets multilingual education? Now, we know that multilingual education is, we've seen the definition already, what Rasheedat has said and what also myself have said. It gives you, when technology now meets MLE, that is multilingual education, it's giving access to digital resources, which is where the world is going to at this point in time. We're moving away from the paper form of resources. We're moving away from having articles, from having printed handbooks. We're now moving to having digital resources, and not just digital resources in form of ebooks or texts. We're now moving to having them in form of podcasts, in form of videos. You're seeing content creation or content creators everywhere, and you're making yourself understand now. We're now understanding that even teachers, we are now content creators. So that is what happens when you are able to integrate technology into multilingual education. Then also, it also leads to immersive learning. So when I talk about immersive learning, it's not just learning on the surface, but now making it, using different forms of technology to be able to achieve learning in most effective way. So that is just a summary of what immersive learning is about. Then we're not looking at personalized learning. This is one thing that technology also helps us to achieve. And when you are talking about multilingual education, and when you're talking about using tech to foster or to enhance MLE, it also leads to personal it also leads to personalized education. I mean, you're able to differentiate, you're able to teach the students one-on-one. You are able to now understand, okay, I want to teach, for instance, you have a class with diverse culture, diverse background. You have people that are coming from Yoruba background, people that are coming from Hausa, people that come from Igbo. You are able to understand how you can meet the needs of those learners at their own pace. You can't just generalize, you have to now personalize this. And technology is the best way to go. It helps you to be able to achieve that. And virtual learning, which we also know that now that with the whole exchange programs that we're having, if I'm learning French, I don't need to be going every week to Benin Republic. What I can actually achieve is I can reach out to a teacher in Benin Republic, or a professor, a lecturer, or someone that speaks French very well, and we can have a Zoom call that my students can actually look at and learn. But now, looking at English language, if we're in the rural area and we want to, try to make sure that our students are speaking very well or are learning better English, you can reach out to somebody in UK, you can reach out to somebody in one of the English language countries, and you are able to ask questions, they're able to speak, they're able to build their oral, they're able to speak, build their comprehension, they're able to do so much better with virtual learning. So that is what happens when technology makes multilingual education. Let's move on to the next slide, please. So what are the tech tools that we can use? There are different tech tools that are available at this point all over the internet. The AI has opened our eyes to see that you don't have just one tool. You can have 200 tools doing the same thing at this point in time. So we have language learning hubs. I'm sorry I could not put examples, but the Duolingo is really effective at this point, sincerely. We have Babel and other language learning apps. You can use language learning apps to improve the learning, or you can use it to improve technology. Sorry, is anybody saying something? To improve multilingual education too. Multimedia tools are such as even your video. Oh, the slides are not showing. Okay. But I can see it. I guess maybe it's just a network from your end. Okay. Now you can even use simple things as radio, get your phone, you record a particular, you're trying to read a comprehension in class, you're just trying to make it practical. It does not have to be complicated. So let's imagine now I'm teaching. Okay, there was a time that a child got transferred from India and was trying to speak and was trying to learn English language. I observed the teacher at that point. because she was not in my class, but she was in my colleague's class, and we had to, brainstorm to think about how we could help this particular child to learn the English language. What she was doing from time to time was the teacher would get a phone and she would read a particular comprehension. She would read it slowly, like trying to read out each word slowly so that the girl can actually catch up. She started with maybe the first line, sentence by sentence, then moved on to paragraph by paragraph before now moving on to a comprehension text. Now you can see that at that point, multimedia tool was effective and helped her to be able to get that, to be able to achieve that particular, to able to teach that girl effectively at that time. So that's where multimedia tool actually comes in. We have translation tools, Google Doc, Google Workspace. Now you don't even Microsoft tools now. You don't need to say I want to go on Google Translate. You can even translate the document directly. And we have other tools also that helps with translation. You can imagine that you're trying to, as a teacher, you're trying to send a message to a child in your class, the parents of that child, and the parent of that child does not speak English. Now, it's very important that you understand that you can just, type the message on your email, translate it to the language of the parent, and you are sending it directly to the child. The same thing to the parent. The same thing also happens to English language. So that's where translation tools also come in effectively. Now we have ebooks and digital library. Digital libraries, we have a library or an open resource education platform that helps you to have access to different resources from different people. And we know that this is very, very important as teachers. You need to look at different ebooks, different resources, even small little things as worksheets, for primary school and secondary school teachers, little things as simple worksheets, simple storybooks, picture books. All these things come in very handy and helps to build multilingual education. Video conferencing. I love video conferencing because you are able to see somebody else from on the other side. Like I use that example that you're a teacher, imagine teaching a rural area, or you're trying to help your students understand more about a particular English literature, and you want them to see it, hear it from you.
Right, thank you very much for the session. So I'll be calling on Pere now to take on the Q&A session. We'll just be taking one question, please. If you have a question, raise your hand. Pere, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much, Precious. Thank you so much, Miss Light, for that enlightening section. The world has gone digital, and indeed, we need to leverage tech tools for multilingual language education. So we'll take one question, just one question. If you have a question for Ms. Light, please indicate by raising up your hand, and we'll take your question. Any questions for Ms. Light? Okay, Virgil, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Thank you very much, Light, for that presentation. Actually, I just wish to find out, I'm actually in Cameroon. Is it possible for us to have the diverse Cameroonian languages on one of the tools you just presented? That's my question.
Yes, ma, it's very possible. One thing I need to understand is human beings are actually putting those resources together. So it's very possible. You can even start small. You can start with having maybe creating something for yourself or for your students on YouTube, uploading the videos on YouTube or the resources on YouTube, or maybe have a website or something to put in those resources. It's very, very possible. Or even create like a podcast session for your students on different platforms, and your students actually have access to that. So you can see that when you do that continuously and consistently, consistently, you're building a library of resource already. And you can imagine that myself as a teacher, maybe I'm trying to build or trying to get to know more about Cameroonian language. I can use your resource as a form of reference to my students too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Light. I hope she answered your question. I believe she did. So at the beginning of the webinar, we asked attendees to indicate their expectations. And I believe that so far we have exceeded expectations. I mentioned earlier that this webinar will be insightful, it will be enlightening, and it has just been that. I have learned a whole lot today. Without further ado, we will introduce our next speaker. But before I do, I want to hand over to my co-moderator, Precious Olawale. Precious, over to you, please.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on. And Mr. Idowu Olajide Taofik will be taking us through this topic, the relevance of selected literary texts in promoting multilingual education among learners. So I'll be going through his bio briefly. Idowu Olajide Taofik is the director and principal of Ikotun Junior High School, Alimosho. He's a leading figure in English language education. Mr. Taofik presently serves as the chairman of the ELTAN Lagos State chapter, having served as the former coordinator of the ELTAN Education District 1 in Lagos State. He has with roles as the English language chief examiner for NECO, team leader for WAEC, and an item writer for English and literature in English. Mr. Taofik has significantly influenced educational standards nationwide. He's a seasoned facilitator and online instructor. Please let's welcome Mr. Idowu Olajide. Thank you, sir. You can have the floor.
Everyone, I want to appreciate the organization of this program. Thank you very much. And I hope everyone here my bio data. I just had my name, but nonetheless, we're in a country where you can't actually. Okay, thank you. I think something's coming up. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Now we know the topic already. We want to see how relevant are the selected texts for literature. How far could this text actually? As far as I know, all our texts are in English language. And I want to quickly say this. Maybe okay, you can go to the next slide, please. Let me just give you a brief introduction, summary of the situation. Maybe the next slide, please. Next slide, if you're there. You know, in those days, our parents they actually support you learning and knowing other languages, probably your Nigerian language, and they also try to promote their own local language. I remember as a young boy, though my father was learned, a lawyer, but you know, outside official engagement, the man speaks Yoruba fluently. You not even believe that this was the man that was actually using all these law technologies. He switched immediately to his local language. And we also trained to do that. We also trained to learn local language and other CG there. She was able to give us a low in 5 different languages. That was fantastic. Fantastic. I tried to learn. When I served in the north, in Borno State, Maiduguri, to be precise, I was trying to learn Hausa language. And I learned some things, you know. I was able to learn Turingi, you know, Bala. Of these things.
Hello, sir.
But, yes. Hello? Are you with me?
Hello, sir. We can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. So now let's quickly go to the aspect of the text. Please, the next slide, please. Let's see the next slide. You know, in those days, when we look at even what we are doing now, I wish we were encouraging multilingual activities. Many of us have spoken in English language. Nobody has been able to give us his own lecture in the local language. So are you sure we are not a victim of that situation too? Probably somebody have told me, okay, Mr. Sadiq, can you use your Yoruba language to give us your lecture? Maybe also promoting multilingual process. Nonetheless, so far, literature in English purely is not promoting multilingual process. I think I can claim that it's not. Even in those so automatically, I am not convinced that literature texts are actually helping us to promote multilingual experiences. I'm not sure of that. So far, because if you look at some of the texts we have in Nigeria, for example, maybe text to teach
I think
students,
we've lost you
learners.
again, sir.
Hello?
Okay, yeah, we
I
can hear
can
you
hear
now,
you,
sir.
please.
I think the
Okay.
network at his hand is bad.
Hello?
You can
Okay.
barely hear him.
Can you hear? Yes. I can't hear. I don't know if I should go ahead because I can't hear anything
I
again.
think we can hear you now.
Please
And
go
then just
ahead.
go ahead.
Hear now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So the next slide, please. And they even teach in other languages, but those are not there now. They're not there, and that is why our literature text so far has not been able to do that. That's a challenge we have. And then let us say, can you give me the next slide? Let us see what should be done so that we can have, so okay, you can see that some of the benefits of multilingual education. The cognitive skill is there, the cultural awareness, academic achievement. When we have some of those things, you can see what we are missing because we are not having our text in other languages. The next slide, please. The next slide, please. So that okay. So, hello, please. No, I can't. There is a background. Okay, you can hear me. You can some of these are the challenges and situations there.
Yes, so we can hear the speaker well. Please, thank you.
Thank you. So we can some of the challenges we have there. We don't have resources. The government is not even ready to train teachers to be able to speak other languages. Even if we could not speak international language, why not our local language? What's wrong with me not learning how to speak Igbo friendly or Hausa friendly or TV or Fulani friendly? There's something wrong in that. And then I will go to advise that if we could just look at some of these solutions, I think we'll be able to go a long way to encourage multilingual activities among our learners, even among our teachers. So next slide, please, so that I can quickly, I don't want to be out of time, please. Next slide, please. Now, in the future, I hope the next generation will be able to encourage multilingual, and then they could do that. You can say the use of digital tools can go a long way to help us, to encourage, to entrench multilingual activities, and then you could be able to give us alternative learning. Say that virtual learning is there. You can learn virtually all other languages, and then because of the digital so we had now, and then we'll encourage good global collaboration, because this is age of internet, age of digital process, age of digital education technology. So that's what I hope is will be encouraged, by the next generation, and then we'll have some of these advantages. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The next slide, so that I can. Okay. In conclusion, I think I will summarize that it is necessary and important for us to have our literature text in other languages. We can start from our own local languages. If I have a poem or a rhyme in Hausa or in Ijebu language. You know, in those days, we have so many of these local rhymes in our primary schools. You know, some of them maybe you sing like La Beigi or Rombo, Ibe, La Benche. These are rhymes in Yoruba language. So even other members of the class that are from the east or the north, they learn that rhyme. There was a time I came across somebody when I went for a seminar with a British council. I met one of the hoteliers there, and she couldn't speak another language except Igbo. I told her in language, Mofe Jiegbe, she couldn't understand. I had to laugh over that. So I want to believe that our text should be a global text, should be a text that will encourage multilingual language, should be text that will make learners eager to learn other languages. And I'm going to call that for action that they should be entrenched in our system. Our government should encourage that. We'll be able to have a better future for our children. Thank you very much. Thank you. If there are questions, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Idowu. That was a very insightful session. Yeah, so before we take just one question, I just want to summarize what I've learned so far. So from Miss Rasheedat's session, she mentioned that you could miss opportunities because you don't speak your own language. And she said, she said, speak Yoruba like a Yoruba person. So if your language is not Yoruba, speak your language like your language. And speak British like a British person. She said it's possible, it's very possible. Then Ms. Light also mentioned the importance of integrating technology into education. And Mr. Idowu also emphasized speaking our language and introducing literary texts that have our language in it. So to help us to encourage multilingualism. If you have questions, we'll give room for just one question. If you have a question for Mr. Idowu, I'll be giving room for one question. So kindly raise your hand if you have a question. Okay, thank you. I think Comfort is raising her hand. You can ask your question, Comfort. Unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you.
I want to commend the chairman of ELTAN Lagos State for that wonderful presentation. However, I don't have a question. I only wanted to reiterate what he has said. And that is to bring to our consciousness that we all need to be intentional about teaching our children the mother tongue. Because when children are grounded in the mother tongue, they are better able to transit to the English language. So when the mother tongue is used, either in literature or any other subject, at the lower levels, by the time the child gets to the upper class in primary school, the child can now juxtapose between the English language and the local language of the environment. And it will now help the child to capture. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I saw that Ayobami Samuel was raising his hand. Do you have a question, please? If you have a question, unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Precious. I actually have a question to ask Mr. Idowu.
Make it very brief.
So I totally agree with what he said, that literature is not, literature in English language is actually not supporting our own local languages, right? Now, for some exams like the West African examination, WAEC now, we know we have a syllabus for literature every year. 5 years interval, right? Now, we have non-African prose, poetry, drama, and then we have African. Even our own African literatures are not written in the African native languages. So I want to ask if it's a good idea to make a motion or a move for our own African literature text to be written in the native language other than English language, so as to carry every of our learners along. Understand? That's my question.
Over to you, Mr. Idowu. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I love that question. Unfortunately, we might not be able to do that because in Nigeria, we have our official language is English language. And because we have a Korean master there, they are not actually making our leaders, to change that system. And secondly, because the issue of West Africa is a combination of 5 countries, we might not be able to do that. But there was a time I told WAEC body that rather than asking us to study all these foreign texts, why not allow us to study African texts? Literature text written by Nigerians, Ghanaians, Ethiopians, etc. So that we'll be able to learn about our language or probably about our culture in Africa. My dear brother Wyke vehemently objected to it and said, no, that this is an international body and they can't do that. So if I could answer your question, for now, I don't think our system is going to allow that or allow that. But I'm promising you that some of us who are at the realm of the affair there concerning English language, we try as much as possible to what we can do to entrench, our own local language in our various schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Idowu. This was a very impactful session. And without wasting much time, we'll be moving to the next speaker, Mrs. Ndidi Dorothy Chiazor Enenmore. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. She's going to be taking us through integrating indigenous languages into global education systems. And before she comes up, I'll briefly just read her profile. Please, can we mute ourselves, please? Thank you. So Mrs. Ndidi is a multi-talented author and advocate for children, education, and cultural awareness. She has written extensively for children, including picture books, early chapter books, and teen fiction. She has notable works like A Hero's Welcome, long listed for the Nigerian Prize for Literature in 2019. And the other works include Mina and the Birthday Dress. Please let's welcome Ms. Ndidi. You have 10 minutes for this presentation, Ma. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Ma. I can.
Okay. So it's my pleasure being here today. And I'm glad a lot of awareness is being made in the area of multilingual. Okay, I can just run with or without the slide since I have just 10 minutes. Okay. I'm presenting on integrating indigenous languages into the global education system. And the team, as we know, the team for this year's International Literacy Day it resonates so much with the theme of the International Mother Language Celebration, which held earlier on in February 21, which is multilingual education as a pillar for intergenerational learning. So it's important that we take languages much more serious, and we have a lot of roles to play from the stakeholders, teachers, parents, educationists, librarians. We all have a role to play in seeing that our indigenous languages are integrated into the global education space. Okay, so for the place of the stakeholders, we need to recognize the place of literacy in promoting peaceful coexistence. And it is heartwarming that stakeholders are increasing this awareness. We have over 7,000 languages spoken in the world. So the issue of multilingualism and indigenous language will continue to be paramount in any meaningful dialogue towards world peace and harmonious coexistence. Okay, so collaboration with writers. Writers are very, very important in this move to integrate our indigenous languages. So I'm clamoring and I'm employing governments to collaborate with writers, give them grants, especially writers of text in indigenous languages, because we don't have enough of them. So we should collaborate with them to see that more books are written in our indigenous languages, and it should be pushed out globally. We should have these books on Amazon so that even our people in diaspora, they will be able to have access to these books and teach their children. And thank God for the internet. The internet is helping a lot. We have a lot of YouTube channels that, people can learn their local languages, especially our children who are born in the diaspora. A lot of them have never visited their home countries before. So we can liaise with writers, even musicians, because music is an universal language. So like I said, I'm going to be running through because I have just 10 minutes and we have so much. I have so much. So music is an universal language, making sure that music in local languages are streamed in so many streaming platforms and making it accessible to, people wherever they are. So there are other things, starting early in the home. We should make our indigenous languages the first language that a child speaks in the home, knowing that eventually they will get to speak English at home or get to speak French, depending on which part of Africa, for instance, they are, because English remains the language of instruction in school. So in the home, there should be, local languages being spoken in the family, either the mother or the father, whomever stays more in the house with the children, should make it, a habit to speak these indigenous languages to the children. And when they grow up with it, it remains with them throughout life. And we know that children can pick up as many languages as possible in their growing up years. So we shouldn't say that they will not be able to learn. They can learn and they can assimilate a lot of languages. Then I have making the case of a lingua franca. We see what is happening in East Africa, where Swahili is spoken by so many East African countries like Tanzania, Kenya, Rwanda, Mozambique. A lot of languages, a lot of countries in East Africa are speaking Swahili. So can't we do something like that? Can't we adopt a language in Nigeria? In as much as we have over 400 languages in Nigeria, but it's high time we decide to adopt one language as our own lingua franca and push it, because Swahili has been, it has been recognized by the African Union as an international language, and it is an African language. So we can do so a similar thing with our West African languages, with our Nigerian languages, push for one of our languages to be adopted as an international language. So this is another way of integrating it into the global education perspective. And then education policies, it should be tilted towards the promotion of local languages. For instance, I live in Lagos, but I'm an Igbo person, So in whichever area anybody is living, children should try to adopt the language of that area. For instance, you might be TV from Benue State, but you live in Abeokuta, for instance. Your children should be able to adopt Yoruba language as their local language. And then even in school, for instance, when you're selecting subjects, the language of that area, in fact, it should be made compulsory. It should make compulsory wherever you find yourself. The language of that place, the language of that, of that place where you're staying should be integrated as a part of your own lingua franca, as when you're selecting a subject to study in school. For instance, instead of because I'm Igbo, I cannot say, okay, my children must select Igbo language in their subjects because they are Igbo. Why don't you select Yoruba? In that way, you're already learning two languages at the same time, in addition to the English language. So our education policy should also make some of these subjects compulsory, not just English and maths, because we see that English and maths are compulsory subjects in the West African school certificate exams. But we can also make our local language one of the compulsory languages in the West African Examination Council. This is a way of integrating our languages into the global perspective. So not just English and mathematics and biology as the case may be, but we should make policies whereby a local language must be a compulsory language in the senior school certificate exams. Okay. And I've also talked about starting early, having conversation, because children, they love language and they are very sensitive to it, because language is developed a lot through interaction and conversation. So language increases the child's mastery of the word, and indigenous languages, if they are introduced to children early enough, deliberately using it in our conversation and dialogues, in our music, it goes a long way. Again, talking about local languages, we have storytelling. We should have storytelling sections You know, in those days before the advent of written literature, we have the oral tradition whereby, you know, stories are passed from one generation to another. We could go back to that. We could go back because some of these folk tales, they have songs and refrains in local languages. They have a way of introducing the folk tales. For instance, if you want to introduce a Yoruba folk tale, you say alo, alo, you know, or Igbo, you say ifo chakpi iwo. So in all of this, children are assimilating these languages, and it will run through life with them. Wherever they find themselves, they will always speak these languages. Again, we should also incorporate poetry in local languages. You know, we have a lot of poems being written in English, being written in French, but we should make a conscious effort to also write poems in indigenous languages, you know, and perform these poems in you know. And again, Google also has translations. So there are so many ways we can incorporate our indigenous languages and integrate them. We have Google translators, so it makes everything much more easy for us. So there is no reason why our local languages should be relegated to the background, because a lot of languages are going into extinction. When languages are no longer spoken, they go into extinction. And when they go into extinction, all the cultural values, because language is closely related to culture. When you lose a language, you're also losing the culture of a people. You know, it's like a whole lot of things being eroded. So we should make conscious effort through poetry, through written literature, through educational policies, through our conscious efforts in the home, through writing of textbooks and literature books in our indigenous languages. These are ways of integrating it into the global education perspective. So I think the time is almost up. So other measures to be adopted include, like I said, governments formulating policies to even reward and encourage teachers of indigenous languages, encourage them, reward them. This will boost their productivity and increase their drive to ensure that students become more passionate about local languages, because you have to have a passion for something, you know. So when you reward teachers, when you give them things to boost their morale, you know, it will also go a long way in helping them to make children to become passionate, make students to become passionate about, you know, inculcating other languages. Then teachers should also educate themselves to be able to teach various subjects in local languages. One of the presenters said that she was using Yoruba language to explain things in English, you know, some words in English language. So teachers should educate themselves to be able to teach various stuff. Even if you're teaching physics, chemistry, biology, whatever, you should be able to, you know, pass across whatever information you want to pass across in indigenous language. And it will make learning much more interesting and fun. Then we should also, you know, think towards boosting the celebration of the International Mother Language Day. We should boost it. A lot of people don't even know that February 21 is Indigenous Mother Language Day celebration. So we should boost it. More awareness is needed about the importance of this celebration. It should be a day where every language is celebrated in every nook and cranny of the earth. So each year, achievable targets should be set out towards the celebration of the International Mother Language Day. And then, you know, we see people falling in love with local languages and making it a part and parcel of their life. I hope I've been able to make some sense in my presentation. Thank you so much.
Mayu.
Right.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank
you.
So this session was very, very impactful. And from our presentation, I could tell that she had been listening from the beginning of the webinar today. I could also tell from a few of our questions that we've been following the webinar. Thank you for your time, everyone. Lastly, this is our last speaker for today's webinar, and I can see Olukotun, or I hope I'm not pronouncing the name. Okay, Okunu raised her hand to ask a question. So if you have, I'm just going to give room for her to ask a question, just her alone. Thank you. Okunu, please, are you still asking your question?
Hello there. It's not really a question, but a comment or an observation. Is that okay?
Okay, thank you.
One, I want to commend the effort of the organizers. My main concern is we are doing so much in Nigeria and in Africa, but the global ELT community is not hearing about our efforts. So maybe we should be thinking more of how we can showcase our activities and what we are doing so that we can let the whole world know what we are doing. The second point, the following on Didi's presentation, one way of promoting our language, not just nationally or in the West African region, but internationally, the American Fulbright Scholarship Program recognizes Igbo, Yoruba, and Hausa. So if we can incorporate them in the application process, like Edo language or Ibira, I think that will also help in promoting what we are doing locally. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I also hope the government makes attempts to introduce policies that would make our local languages compulsory in examinations. So, does Okuna still have a question, please? Oh, do you still have a question? Okay. There's a question in the in-call messages from Comfort. She says, in a situation where people no longer study these languages in the university, how do you get people to teach the languages? There is a dearth of local languages teachers in our local schools, okay, in all our schools, because nobody is there to replace those who have retired. Mrs. Ndidi, if you're still here, can you attend to this question for us, please?
Okay, please, can you ask the questions again?
Okay, the question again.
Yes, please.
In a situation where people no longer study these languages, I repeat, in a situation where people no longer study these languages in the university, how do you get people to teach the languages? There is a dearth of local languages teachers in all our schools because nobody is there to replace those who have retired. That's the question, ma'am.
Yeah, in my presentation, I said that government should give should give some incentives to teachers of local languages. It will make them to, be much more passionate, and it will even upcoming teachers, when they know that there is a lot of incentive given to people who teach local languages, I think it will also stimulate interest. So we have a lot of work to do, especially our government. They have to be as passionate as we are in this thing, not just paying lip service to it. Because if I know, for instance, if I'm a teacher of Yoruba or Igbo or a Gala language, I will get an official car, for instance. Why will I not go ahead, and by the time, when there is a huge demand, then the supply will be available, so to say. So when there is a demand for learning of these indigenous languages, we will not lack teachers. So our government, even NGOs, they can go, take them on and give them grants, take them on some what would I say, some retraining programs, and give them good incentives, give them official cars, even offer them houses. Yes, because we must do all it takes to retain our languages. So when there is incentives given to teachers of these languages, I don't think the departments would ever be closed down, because it will encourage other people to want to learn, to want to take on those courses, their course of choice.
Thank you very much, ma. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for your contribution. So in short, we should encourage incentive for local languages teachers. Thank you for that session, ma. Right about now, we'll be having closing remarks and next steps, and I'll be calling on my co-host again, Pere, to take this session. Pere, are you still here?
Yes, Precious, I'm here. Well done to you and our speakers. Well done to everyone that has been on the webinar call since 10 a.m. Thank you. So at this point, I believe the section has been insightful and enlightening, as indicated. So let's do this together. Just indicate in the comment section one key point from any of the speakers. We've had 4 speakers since morning. Please indicate one key point from any of the that you've learned from any of the speakers, and we'll read out 4. So let's go over to the comment section. Okay, Okon Effiong said promoting our local languages. Yeah, so let's keep it coming in. One key point one key lesson you've learned from the section. We've had 4 speakers. What have you learned today? I have learned a lot. So Comfort said language use should begin from the home. Parents should be intentional about it. Making local languages, pushing for our language to be recognized as an international language. Yes, this shows that we've been listening and we have learned a lot. I am super glad and excited about all we've learned today. We want to say thank you to everyone and to the speakers, to my co-host. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So before we wrap up this webinar, I'd like for the different organizations to give a brief about what they do, their initiatives. So we have 5 different organizations come together to organize this webinar. So we'll start with, I will share my slide briefly so we'll see. Okay, so I will share my slide so we'll see the logo and pictures of the different organizations. And then we'll have representatives or representatives of these organizations come up and talk about their organizations briefly. Okay, so as indicated, we have 5 organizations. There's TESDA, EcoPages, Everything Literature, ELTAN, and A+Educators. So I'll start with TESDA. TESDA is the educators for, apologies for the noise in the background. TESDA is the Educators for Sustainable Development Africa. And my humble self, I am the founder of TESDA. TESDA is a non-profit organization that teaches children. We focus majorly on SDG Goal 4, quality education, particularly on 4.7, that's education for sustainable development and climate action. So we teach children between the ages of 5 to 17 about climate action, its adaptations, mitigations. So we use fun pedagogical approaches. We teach about climate action through making of SDG hand bracelets. We do trash arts with the children. We just adopt ways that we can teach them about climate action, just in, so they will not easily forget about it. Our aim is to close the climate awareness gap in Africa. Sorry, I'm trying to rush because of time. Next, we have, thank you very much. Next, we have EcoPages. So the representative of EcoPages can unmute his mic and tell us about the initiative. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, everyone. My name is Mariam, and I'm the Communications Director at EcoPages. EcoPages is an EdTech Sustainable Development Goals learning platform. And I always like to say that we were born out of the urge to nurture and teach young minds to become the future change makers, right? We offer ESG services such as subscription packages on our website for people, for children and educators to learn about sustainable development goals. And you can visit our website displayed here to learn about or to have a feel of our free SDG learning materials. We also have a weekly publication of SDG themed stories on our website and our platforms, across various platforms at EcoPages. And then we also offer SDG projects such as our SDG Literacy Drive and tutor programs and all of that. For us, it's basically education for sustainable development and hoping to bring up future eco-soldiers that would conquer the world. Thank you very much.
Alrighty, thank you. Next we have Everything Literature.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Precious, and I'm the literary content developer at Everything Literature. So Everything Literature is an EdTech organization that is dedicated to revolutionizing the digital teaching and learning experience for literary educators and enthusiasts in Africa and globally. So we assist literary educators in enhancing their digital teaching skills, create opportunities for literary educators, and more. Basically, we connect, develop, and equip EL teachers, that's everything literature teachers. So our programs include the Everything Literature Network and our yearly hangout. The Everything Literature Network is a growing community of literary educators. There, we share ideas and tips for our development as a community. We have our weekly activities designed for our all-round development as educators. On Monday, we have Plan, Ask, and Share. On Tuesdays, we have Trivia and Teaching Tips. On Wednesday, we have our theme-based discussions, after which there's a Q&A session. Then on Thursdays, we have peer review and feedback. On Fridays, our virtual reading club. And Saturdays, we have virtual chats tagged If I Were to Be the Minister for. So you can connect with us via our website, www.everythingliterature.net. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Everything Literature. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Precious. Next, we have English and Literature Teachers Association of Nigeria. Let's have the representative, please.
So I guess we have to welcome the presence of the.
Are you talking about ELTAN, please?
Yes. So, Madam
Yes,
CJ, please, we'd like you to brief us on that. ELTAN as the secretary. Thank you.
Okay. On behalf of ELTAN, I'm speaking. Can I continue? Hello, Pere.
Yes, please.
Pere, can I continue?
Yes.
Okay. I want to thank the organizers.
Can you hear me?
As I said, I can hear you, Pere. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
I said I'm speaking as the General Secretary of ELTAN Lagos State Chapter, and I want to thank the organizers and the partners for organizing such a wonderful program. I'm sure that everyone who has listened in today has learned not one or two things, many things, and I hope going beyond today, we'll be able to have better partnerships that will enhance the teaching and learning of literature in English. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Alrighty, thank you so much. Thanks to the representative of the different organizations. So the next, okay, thank you very much. We've been on this webinar call since 10 a.m. We do not take this for granted. We are so grateful for taking time to join us. It has been really insightful, and there have been very profound key points from the different speakers. Thank you, every single person here today. Thank you to the different organizations. I say well done. Thank you to my co-host, Precious. You have been amazing. Thank you, everyone. To the speakers, I say a big thank you. You've filled up our knowledge bank today, from Ms. Rasheedat to Mr. Idowu to Madam Indidi to Ms. Chime and even Mr. Erick. So we could not play Mr. Erick's section because of technical glitches, but we will definitely upload the recording of this webinar in Everything Literature websites, in the different websites of the different organizations, and we will include Mr. Erick's section. So learning does not end here, and we believe that what we've learned today, it's not just by learning, we also have to carry out different actions. We also have to carry out different actions from what we've learned here today. So whatever you've learned here today, act on it. We'll definitely upload the recording sections in the website, and we will send a mail where we will indicate the link to the recording. Thank you, everyone. This webinar does not end here. We will definitely give out info for upcoming webinars, roundtable talks, and insightful discussions. Thank you once again, and it's bye from me.
Bye, Perry.
Bye.